Hi, Carol.
Howdy doody.
Long time no speak. Very nice to have you. Gosh, what a marathon session it has been for me. But yeah, it was. Well, it must have been quite an experience for you. All
What?
those young men.
Well, when people start talking over each other, I don't know what they're talking about, and they weren't. It just turned into some conversation that just sounded like some guys hanging out, so I left.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I knew it was getting like that, but I guessed. To be fair to them, they have been discussing theology for a while, so they may,
Oh, they were doing theology earlier. I see. Yeah, no, they were talking about a little bit about transhumanism and prosthetic arms. I mean, this kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
I hit the road.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was getting a bit tired of it too, but I've been there, I guess all evening, nearly. I think
That's
it's
pretty late for
been on
you.
for 4 hours or something. Yeah, it's nearly 1 o'clock,
Wow.
and well, I think you made quite an impression. They wanted your number,
Oh,
didn't
I,
they?
I don't know. Somebody said they're going to put me on a list. Ooh.
I think it
I,
might have been Lewis Wayne who's kind of collecting talent for his channel or something. The one with with the weird.
Armand, whoever Armand was. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if I got the thing or not. I'll have to look on Twitter later if they
Yeah,
made
yeah. I
it.
mean, Raymond Harmon was the one with the bad audio, but with the big mic. Um, and I guess
Mm.
most of the time they were being a bit silly, but he made quite an impression on them. Um, oh yes, and after you left, that I think William's been in touch with them too, so he might even appear soon. I don't know. So we've got the whole bunch on that stream, which is quite
Mm.
funny.
Getting a neighborhood.
Yes, yes, and hopefully he'll keep it up, I guess.
Claire Hawes neighborhood.
Yes, and quite a few people were there. I mean, they sort of had heard of secular Quranism. There was some guy called Mossad who hates me and won't talk to me, and he was there. And he says he's got your number.
Please put me on a list because I don't want aid to Israel anymore. I don't want aid to anybody anymore. No more aid as far as I'm concerned. But I don't run the United States. I'm just a spiritual leader of Muslims in the United States as caliph because this is not an Islamic state at this time. And, the supreme leader of secular Quranism in the US. So that's what I am. And that's what I'm advocating right now today for I don't know how long. We'll see.
You're sort of like the kind of Archbishop of Canterbury to the King, perhaps. Is that
Well,
how you
no,
see
I'm
yourself?
not. I'm not an advisor to the president. He hasn't invited me, and I'm not. And I wouldn't go if he did with this
In
administration.
case
I would
something
be
happened to
yeah.
you,
Huh?
in case you get thrown in the dungeon or something.
No, it wouldn't go anyway. I.
Oh, come
Well,
on, really? You got an invitation to the White House? You'd say no?
to Biden, yes, yes, I
Okay.
would. There's no reason to go to the White House to talk to Biden.
No, no, no.
There's no reason.
What do you think of the other candidates in the for the Republicans? Will you still be staying loyal to Trump, or will you are you choosing any of the other people?
I don't know. I'll probably vote for Trump.
Oh,
He could
good, I good
finish
because
out. He could finish out the term he wasn't allowed to finish out. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it sort of really distresses me that that all these people, oh, we might just vote for DeSantis. It's like, well, he's more controlled opposition. He's one of those sort of smooth guys who've been properly trained to say it. He's another Lindsey Graham.
I don't know. I don't know. We don't have a good situation going on in government in the United States, and the parties are a mess. And
I was trying to explain to those guys. It's like, if you don't believe in your religion, you're not going to follow it. You'll just be breaking the rules whenever you think you can get away with it, and obviously, if you did believe in it, then you will follow it because you want to follow it. And once upon a time, when most people believed, they would do it. They would actually want to follow the rules because it
well, they
was a
have
rule.
they have to follow something that they can't get bought and paid into doing something else. That's what it comes down to. And I don't know if it's just religion or it's a sense of honor or if it's just plain old pig-headedness or even, hey, I know better than you and I'm just going to do what I think. I don't know. I think that with this this collapse of the economy that's going on in the United States and stuff, uh, it is destroying the middle class and is creating a heavy underclass.
Well, that's the thing. When I was doing history, my history teacher said what keeps liberalism going is the middle classes. That there has to be a strong middle class, or capitalism itself will collapse. So if they're wanting to keep capitalism going, they're not doing what they need to do.
They're not trying to
Even
keep
if you're an
capitalism
evil
going.
capitalist and all, you still need to keep the middle class going.
They're not trying to keep capitalism going, this
I don't
government.
think they know what they're doing.
Oh, I think they do know what they're doing. I think they do know exactly what they're doing. I think they're sold out. They're in service to a international oligarchy, the World, Economic Forum, and it's the same people over and over again. They're creating a mindset where people give up to this oligarchy and think they can't do anything. I saw this in the 70s, back when I was in college. I didn't finish college, but when I was in college, I saw this. The political science teachers and stuff were starting to say there wasn't anything you could do against the government. That's just not true. If enough people just say no, they can't do anything. But what they're doing is they're destroying it at such a certain rate that that enough people aren't getting upset all at once to massively demonstrate against it and massively come out. Like they're thinking, okay, I'm okay, so I'm not going to say anything. They're getting like that. It's really terrible. This
Well,
our country is.
this is it. I think the belief is the most important thing, because if you're an atheist, then you would think that um, the worst thing that could happen to you is that you might get executed, or you might get hurt, or you might lose your job, you might suffer economic loss, and you just wouldn't be prepared to make the sacrifices. But the whole idea of fighting for anything, well, men who are supposed to sacrifice their lives, is that I guess you had to incentivize them by saying, well, you'll be honored if you're dead, and you'll go to a good place after you're dead, and all that kind of thing. And
Well,
I guess they had to sort of believe in it, or
well,
pretend to
I don't know. I don't
to
even
do
think
all
they have
those
to believe
things.
in a religion. I don't even think people have to believe in a religion to have that. But you cannot be brainwashed for 3 generations into thinking you can't do anything, that you're institutionalized to shut up and bowing down to authority. It's like that book. What's that book? Obedience to Authority.
I don't know
It's like
that
they
one.
book. You don't know that book? It's the one where they ran the study. They had a. I forgot the author of it. It's an
Oh,
older
the
book.
Milgram, is it
Yeah, the
something?
Milgram thing. They've
Yeah.
been basically in Milgram, where you're sitting around watching people be oppressed. You're told to do nothing. This has gone on for 3 generations, and it started pretty full hog during the Vietnam War. Right after Vietnam is when they started doing this. So you have 3 generations of people being told you can't go against authority. Now they're being told what's real isn't real, and you must parrot the authority. this is really horrendous what is going on in this country. Now, once you've dummied down education for 3 generations and you have an upper academia that has totally sold out promoting this, it's very difficult to get anybody to remember anything like a sense of honor, a sense of fair play, justice, common sense when they don't see it.
But
It's a horrendous problem.
you can still, in theory, you can frighten people, you can bribe people,
Well, that's what
threaten,
they're doing.
bribe, and or shame.
Oh God, Claire, you got a generation now that doesn't even know how to live in a car.
Well, maybe they don't need to live in a car just yet because
Well, they can't because their car will be impounded. People who live homeless in a car have to sleep on the ground outside the car.
crikey.
Okay, so we have there's a lot of problems here, and we have sort of different cultures here, but it's mostly what makes noise is mostly the city cultures and what's happening in the cities and stuff makes more noise. The rural people have it a little bit more together. Some of the most competent youth you will see are people brought up in Alaska that never set foot into a public school.
Biblists and things.
No, I'm not talking about tribalists. I'm just saying homeschooling in Alaska, because a lot of people live outside of incorporated cities and stuff. It's very common. And those kids all can do things. They can work with tools. They can do all this stuff. They're like perfect if you're trying to go off the grid in a rather harsh climate. Alaska's quite harsh part of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And farmers, if you talk to any military cadre in the combat arms units, they all prefer to have a farm boy than anybody from a city.
Because they're practical and they can
Because
do
they
things
can
like
use
the
tools,
woodwork.
they can use tools, they can carry the backpacks, they can just keep going. They're not wimpy. You don't have to explain it to them. They don't whine. Now we do have, of course, a lot of drugs and alcohol and stuff in rural areas. I mean, we got problems in this country, but it isn't
It's a middle class. Yes. I was just saying that they're talking to the middle classes, that the YouTubers that circle around Paul Van der Klee. I don't know if you followed any of his streams, but did you or not?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Paul Van der
I
Klee.
can't hear out of my left ear anymore.
Okay, Paul Van der Klee is
Oh.
basically this Calvinist pastor, and he has ambitions to. Well, I mean, he was talking to John Vervaeke, and John Vervaeke occasionally streams with Jordan Peterson, and I guess he's just trying to bask in the reflected glory of people like Jordan Peterson. But I don't think Jordan Peterson is going to end up doing much anyway, because there's so many things they won't discuss. Okay, he talked to that Muhammad Hijab for a bit, and then and that's it. And it's like, oh well, I don't think so. Bye. That's what they do in their dismissive arrogance. And nobody can chase them and say, well, if not Islam, then what? Jordan Peterson, you don't believe in God, do you? Because if you did, you would answer the question about whether you believe in God, but you refuse to answer. You say it's some personal question, and so it means that he doesn't believe in God.
I thought he did. He had a video where he was crying, saying he's found Jesus or something, didn't he?
No. Okay, apparently people have been asking him, like, do you believe in God, Jordan? And he said, no, it's a personal question. How dare you go away? So, and I conclude from that he doesn't. And this brings to mind what happened to the Sadducees all those centuries ago. and the Sadducees, the priesthood of the time, didn't believe in God because there was some kind of controversy at the time, and the Sadducees didn't believe in an afterlife, and that was the end of them.
Well, the Sadducees, uh, the Sadducees didn't go up north; they went south.
Well, I mean, okay,
If you read
why
about it
don't
in Islamic texts, they're called the Sadduic or something. The Jews and stuff they were talking about in around Arabia and stuff down there were not from the Pharisees.
okay, but okay, the Pharisees were the kind of, maybe you could kind of equate them to the basket of deplorables, and the Sadducees could be equated to the liberal elite. They had their priesthood, they were happy, they didn't really care. They had their nice job, making temple sacrifices, and they were happy with things. They didn't really believe in the afterlife, and they were basically atheists. And I'm saying that if you're an atheist, then you would think this is the only life, and it would be terrible if you lost it. It would be terrible if you lost opportunities to have sex or accept bribes and have fun shopping and all that sort of thing. So you wouldn't even think of making sacrifices for anyone because you think it's stupid. You think people who believe in God are stupid, and you're not going to be stupid, and you're going to have fun because this is the only life you have. It's that sort of attitude, which is what our ruling classes have. It's like, well, it's just stupid to make any sacrifices for those stupid people. Why would you do a thing like that? You know? So I mean, I've come to the conclusion that yes, it is actually necessary to really believe in it, or you won't do what is required.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, even the Vikings, they had this idea of Valhalla, which is where all the brave warriors go who, liked a good fight, and then they could, every day go fighting, in Valhalla, and always come back, after a hearty day's back, all these, myths,
Well,
were there.
I think people are better off having a sort of an optimistic approach to life and believing there's something outside of themselves. And in this way, yeah, I believe people are better off if they have some kind of a religion that's not oppressing other people. I do believe that. And unfortunately, as far as Christianity is concerned, they've given up on their codes of moral behavior was in the society itself under the Romans. I mean, this code, and then
Well, yes, because originally the Christians were prepared to martyr themselves. They just didn't care if the Romans tortured them and threw them to the lions because they knew they were going to heaven after they martyred themselves. And this idea also came from the Jews. The Jews were given rules like, if you're being tortured, you can't give in if they're telling you to commit adultery, if they're telling you to kill people, if they're telling you to bow before idols, but everything else, if they're forcing you to eat pork, well, then eat it. It's that kind of thing. They had definite rules about what was permissible and what wasn't. And um, and I suppose the whole idea of sacrifices is also present in the military because, well, people are going to get killed in wars. But if you're all afraid to die, then, well, and the enemy knew you were afraid to die, then they'll come in great numbers and overwhelm you, knowing that you're too afraid to fight them, and you'll probably run away.
yeah,
And
sure.
so it's a kind of psychological warfare, really. And I think the religious people sort of know that, if you're atheist, I mean, they can deduce that you'll be afraid to die if you don't believe in an afterlife, and you'll be easy to control. All they have to do is threaten you or bribe you,
When you take away family structure away from people, I don't know if religion's the biggest thing or not. I mean, we're just
well,
talking.
I think so, because really, if you were indoctrinated, I think we're all, it just, what matters is what we are indoctrinated into doing. And once upon a time, people were indoctrinated into thinking that they wanted to get married and have children, and that they would feel terrible if nobody wanted to marry them, or if they didn't have children, and they would feel terrible about it. But at least they had children. And now we know what happens when not enough people have children. You create an enormous demand for immigrant labour. And when they come in, obviously things are going to change because you'll have to accommodate them. And, that there's always an exchange of culture. Even if you're an invader and you go and invade somebody else and you govern their country, you would still go native in some way. You would. I mean, this was something British colonial administrators would be known to do. It's like if you stay in India too long, you'll start becoming Indian, and that would be terrible because your own people won't accept you anymore. But the whole point is that if you want to think about it, a bit more about whether you want to marry and have children, a lot of people think, well, hey, maybe I don't want to get married. It's not going to be much fun being stuck to just one partner and pay for the kids. What if the kids are bad? What if, and what if they're expensive? And what if they're really annoying? And what if they don't love me? What if I don't love them? And all sorts of things. And so if you overthink it, then you will decide that maybe you don't want to get married, and maybe you'd rather be gay. Maybe you want to, so if we're told that it's okay for us to think of changing our sex or be gay or be, feminist and, die childless, then all these things are going to have an effect on our society.
Well, obviously.
Yes, and I think we should, understand the enormity of the things against people who wish to change things, because we also know that the average age is 40, and 40 is, well, it's the oldest for. Okay, fighting age is between 18 and 30, isn't it? If you want to join the army, 40 is the limit. Nobody expects you to, well, apparently, 40 is the limit, is the max. If the average age is 40, then I guess we're not going to be having a violent revolution because, older people, they worry about the cold and their bones and getting wet and not having their medication, being near a doctor. They think differently to young people. So they're harder to shift. I mean, imagine if our average age was 80. I mean, we'd be goners. Nobody would do anything. They'll just be waiting to die, wouldn't they?
If you have a bunch of young people in a school system
and
that
that's
is teaching them there's no such thing as honor, there's floating morality, uh, a disrespect for authority, while at the same time making them subservient to authority by promoting these fancy ideas, fantasy type ideas. If you're going to brainwash them at a young age like that, I don't see how you can quite get them to soldier up and hit the military with much gusto. If you're going to use this time that they're in school, it should be used to create people who are willing to defend the United States. And if you feel that way, you want to defend the country, you're going to go in the military, or you're going to do something to help society, the thinking is a little bit different than someone who's been told constantly one ridiculous thing after another. And that morality changes. Because a lot of people aren't going to buy into it. Most people can't come out and be, they can't come out and be the most honorable, perfect person. But at least they could feel like there's something wrong if they can't be. you know?
And I think fundamentally, the only thing that could, well, people change their minds or they change their behavior if they feel a different kind of emotion about something. And this is basically what cognitive behavior therapy is all about, isn't it? Do you know something about it?
That's for borderline personality disorder, right?
Well, cognitive personality disorder is really, telling you to, you know, it's just making you have a different interpretation of events. So if uh, something bad happens and you used to behave in a certain way, the therapist will say, no, don't look at it in this sort of, it's the end of the world kind of thing. Don't catastrophize this frequently recurring event. You should be looking at it in a new light. And when you look at it in a new light, you will behave in a different way. You will react in a different way, and it will be the better for you.
Teaching new scripts to tell yourself. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And then basically, if we change our beliefs from atheist to theist, then the behavior would change. Of course, it needs constant reinforcement, but let's assume that everybody's a nihilist and they just can't see the point in behaving well if they don't think they're going to in any way benefit. Then you would have to say to them, oh, but it will benefit you and you will win because A, B, C, and D. Because okay, the terrible danger of the kind of people we have now is that they are risk averse. The men are as risk averse as old women. It's like they're not going to do a whole bunch of things because they're afraid it's uncomfortable, they can't be bothered, whatever. And so they have to be motivated.
Well, if you institutionalize people in a mental institution, they will behave like the people in the mental institution. There was a case,
Learned helplessness.
a case, not case. I don't remember what year this was. This was quite a while back. There was this guy. It was in the papers, and he was in a mental institution since he was a child for being, uh, I guess, severely retarded or mongoloidism or something. But he could
Hmm.
walk, talk, and stuff. And every time he started doing something, acting normal, like someone who didn't have these problems, they would stop it. Right. So they used institutionalized into a set of behaviors. He was not anything wrong with him mentally. He wasn't, you know, whatever the politically correct term is, he wasn't retarded at all.
Hmm.
So finally, they let him out, and I think someone gave him a job as a janitor. It was all over the papers
Hmm.
in the United States at the time. But he was institutionalized to be like that. What we have in this country are men who are being institutionalized as if they're in a prison in school. It's one of the worst things they can do with your children, with boys, is put them in school, and with the girls, from this standpoint, from just this standpoint, this many hours a day, being told to sit down is against the normal development of the male nature. So we
Well,
have a
see,
lot of problems with the schools, a lot of problems, but the main one right now is the global homo stuff and the trans stuff and telling children the things that you know to be true and can see to be true are not true, and you must bow down to this, to the point they're totally questioning every single thought they have. This is a form of brainwashing.
sure,
There's no
sure.
reason at all anyone is sending their children to school. Now, I know you say that not everybody cannot do that. Well, what about the people who can not send their kids?
Well, then I guess they will, but I mean, they tend to be middle class people, right? Who, where I guess husband, earns enough to keep wife at home to homeschool the kids. I guess,
They,
you know.
I don't necessarily have to be homeschooled by themselves. I mean, people do get together and do it here, And who does this a lot are fundamental Christians. You can go maybe get some help from them. Now, they don't like schooling their kids with, people like me, but they do this a lot in this country, and it is possible. A lot of people can get help with it. One of the things, a problem with having children that are not married. Oh, okay, I guess you saw that thing with me and Brother William today. He was talking about, children have to know their lineage and this and that. The truth is, people have a harder time defending children when there's only one parent in the home. I
Yes,
know
because
some.
marriage is a child protection scheme. I mean, because the whole idea is, well, if your parents are married and one of them is abusive, hopefully the other one will protect you from the other abusive parent. But if you only got one parent and she's abusive, that's the
one
end of you.
one person just can't do everything.
Yeah.
Part of it. And I know someone now, their child their child failed kindergarten. And I was talking to them. I said, well, what you should do, or my advice was, have them repeat kindergarten and you teach them how to read that year in kindergarten. Because although many kindergartens are all day long now, some of them are only part day or whatever, you can do that. You can teach them how to read. If they're in kindergarten, they don't have a whole lot of homework. You can teach them to read, ignoring whatever it is they're teaching them in the classroom. That was my advice. They didn't listen to it. They sent their kid on to first grade. Now their child has flunked first grade.
Hmm.
And they're going to try to teach this child how to read in the middle of them having a whole bunch of schoolwork they're bringing home. Because the idea of the school is to provide a half hour, depending on the grade, half hour, 1 hour, 2 hours homework every night. In other words, they're ruining family life in the home too. And one person can't do all this stuff, and people, they're not getting it. If this problem is going on in the schools now, this trans and all this stuff, and one of my daughters had a teacher at the junior college, I don't know how long ago this was, who used to wear a dress to, a man wore a dress to class, off the class and a hat. Of course, you're talking about older people. You got to tell a bunch of 7-year-olds that this is real. Can't bring kids up like that. Man, in my day, you told little kids about sex. Get away from these guys. Don't go in the stranger's house. Don't go in there. And then you were watching them at the same time. You didn't think kids were little mini adults and could somehow protect themselves in that kind of a mess. The whole thing's horrible.
Yes, and really, how you can change people's minds would be the narrative. Yes, I mean, some people want to blame, I don't know, the government or feminists or Jews or whatever. And if you make the story simple enough and hard to contradict, people might even accept it. Because, what I've learned from Jewish theology is it is Jewish philosophy, and what Jews do is basically explain everything like all good and evil comes from God. All of it, whatever whatever you're complaining about, everything comes from God, the good, the evil, and if you accept this premise, then all suffering is punishment for sin. Would you agree, Carol?
No. I'm Muslim. I don't agree with that thinking. No.
Uh,
We believe evil is an absence of God. It's a person making themselves absent from God. Depending on how evil they get, they're forgetting God. They forget. They're forgetting. We don't have an idea that evil and good is created in the first place. These are like different ideas of how you look at philosophy.
it's in Isaiah 19:15.
Well, I'm talking about how you set up the thinking behind the narrative people are told. In Islam, we are not told that. Well, so actually, there are some Muslims that do say this is created, but the type of Muslim I am, we do not say inanimate things are created. We don't say that. We don't say good and bad is created by God. It is a judgment call. Whether it's good or bad is how we judge what it is. And I don't think this even matters. I don't think people need to understand all this. What they need to
No, but I'm trying to explain to you how it would work if you did believe in it. Okay, so
if
if
you
you
believe in
accept,
it, if you believe in God, yeah, sure, you're going to quit doing things. Now, the best church to instill guilt in a person was the Roman Catholic Church. You really thought if you did something bad, God was going to see you do it, right? It did. It does clean up some people's behavior. It does a lot of people's behavior if they believe in God and they think it's important to believe in God and they have this connection to it. Yes, it does. It does change behavior. It makes men stand out and have honor. It has people create sacrifice for other people. But they have to be in an environment where they see some of this in action in some way, and that you see that in a married family. You have two parents married and kids. Every day, let's say you have let's say you have 3 kids. Every day, somebody has to give up something for somebody else in a family.
yes, I suppose, okay, in terms of the narrative, what I'm trying to say is this: if you accept the premise that all good and evil come from God, then it would mean that suffering is punishment for sin. So if you're feeling bad, it's like, well, I must have done something wrong, right? I mean, this is
Well,
what you're meant to think.
if you believe that,
Okay, I know not everybody believes in it, but I'm saying if you do believe in it, and Jews are supposed to believe in it, and maybe they never did, but anyway, that's what they were supposed to do. But there is utility in this belief because
they believe their community suffers as a community for the sins of the people. Yes.
well, it could be more universally applied because if suffering is punishment for sin, then in order to stop suffering, you stop sinning. Yes, I mean, if you want to, if you want to think the whole thing through, and think, oh, I'm hurting. I wonder what it could be. Aha! It
Well, you
must be
could
because
find
I've done something wrong, and God is mad at me.
yeah, someone
Okay,
could have
so
that reaction to it.
and then when you get to that stage of thinking, you'll go through a list like, oh, what could I have done wrong that God might be mad at me about? And then you go through a list of the, say, no height laws. It's nice and simple. There's only 7 of them. You go through them and think, ooh, have I broken any of them?
Well, yeah, but by the other way, you could, if you believe that um, suffering is just part of the human condition, and uh, good can help relieve suffering, and you can, remove some of your own suffering and
Yes,
other
yes, yes.
people's
But
suffering. That
when
can
it's
be motivation too.
yes, of course you can, the minor acts of kindnesses that we can, or major acts of kindnesses, but, we just do the right thing, or we try to, but we can only do the right thing if we know what the rules are, and most people don't
But
know what the
I think what you're describing, and I think some people will have that reaction to it that you're describing, and yeah, that'd be pretty good.
Yes,
But
yes. Okay, let's hear your but.
um, okay, but if I forgot now.
Okay, may I just continue with my point? Because it's really quite simple in that if you think something terrible is going to happen and really, really bad, your entire civilization is going to collapse, your empire is going to fall, what can you do? Well, you think, you might have some sort of interest in preventing it, then you would go through the list of things that you might have done wrong that God might be mad at you for, and the no height laws is key.
Yeah,
Really.
but I don't think, but my reaction to that kind of thinking of it's blaming, someone blaming when bad things or whatever happened to someone, that somehow it's their own fault. Now, since my thinking runs that way, what you're describing isn't a helpful idea for me.
No, no, I'm talking about in societal
I'm
terms.
talking
So,
about in society too. I'm talking about in society too. If we're gonna get rid of injustice, and if we're, and I don't mean, we're gonna make everyone equal like some kind of communist thing, but if we're going to create justice, we're not gonna. I don't believe that blaming the victims is gonna be much help.
but if I could just finish explaining my point, which is that if you accept responsibility for anything you might have done wrong that might make God mad at you, then you won't. There's a word for it, isn't there?
Sin.
What do you do with sin? You
I don't
can,
know.
well, you can indulge in it and you can also repent of it, right? I mean, that's the whole story of Jonah. He well, he told the Ninevites what they'd done wrong, and they repented and were saved. There's the story.
Well, okay.
So,
I'm not going to be a Christian or a Jew.
no,
But
no,
the way,
but the story of Jonah is in the Quran. Eunice.
whether it's in or not, whether it's in there or not, this particular approach, I understand it's workable for some people, and if it is, then I hope they adopt that thinking. Okay, but I do not have the think. I believe bad things happen to good people all the time. It's part of the horrors of being
Yes,
in.
because it's collective punishment.
Yeah, I don't think God's punishing somebody because something bad happened to them in this life. I don't
But
think
I thought you were supposed to believe in an omnipotent God.
well, so what?
Well, I mean,
More
because the
powerful, he
whole
sent us down here.
structure of it is meant to
We're here.
help you solve these problems, and then
He
you're
sent
saying,
us
"Oh,
here.
but I don't believe in it."
He sent us here for. We're here for some reason.
To
Uh,
learn, there's even a verse to to get to know God and to acquire knowledge, presumably wisdom. There's a verse. So yeah, we're meant
to know
to,
yourself is to know God, is the saying. To know yourself is to know God.
and the only way we can get to know ourselves better is to put ourselves to the test. We don't just sort of, know ourselves sitting around doing nothing
Well,
much. We
that's getting into this is getting into interpretation of religion. If people don't, if people are not following, or if people are following, actually following a religion, and they're being taught in a certain way by religion, they're going to have a different understanding or a different mind or something when they're looking at issues. You can't really go into someone else's religion like that unless you're extremely familiar with it.
well, I'm reasonably familiar with the basics of all these world religions. There are only five,
Okay,
so
but look, what are we trying to do here? We want to cleaned up society, and we don't want all this
yes,
global homo stuff, and we
yes, and there has to be a
we want.
narrative. There has to
And
be a there has to be a narrative for people to either accept or reject, right? It's like this is a problem, so and so is to blame, and the solution is whatever, and they can believe you or not believe you, and they might even do it, and they might succeed or not succeed. But basically, the whole idea is about repentance, isn't it? I mean, this is all familiar to everyone in any religion. It's like, I done wrong, better stop. Isn't
well,
that? I mean,
recognizing
you don't even
wrong
have
and
to be.
self-reflection should, hopefully lead to better choices next time. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So you just stop doing it. I mean, that's the whole idea. You do a U-turn. You don't walk off the cliff when you realize that you're going the wrong way. If you're if your ship is heading towards the rocks, and you know about it, well, you'll try to steer your ship away from the shallows. It is, it's a continuing narrative. And what I'm saying is that if you can impose a narrative to what's happening now, and the narrative is sufficiently simple and engaging for people to kind of understand it. Okay, I mean, they might not know, they might be a bit skeptical because you're already skeptical. You don't quite accept my narrative that if God exists, then all good and evil come from him. He knows everything, and everything happens for a reason, and what's happened before was meant to happen, and you may not know the reason, I may not know the reason, but there was a reason because and the whole idea is God is in perfect control of the universe and knows your heart and mind. And
he knows what you're going to do. Okay, so
yeah, and if you read this,
God's not forcing me to do good, or God doesn't force me to do good or bad. It's not forcing.
Yes, he's giving you the option, but obviously you have to understand the options before you. And I'm talking about just all these different religions. So you might be familiar with my whole idea of ranking the four Gentile religions, and you may not agree with me about putting Christianity right at the bottom, because that's a whole idea. And me harping on about idolatry, which is
I don't
a
I
mortal
don't
sin.
think it I don't think it I don't have a problem with you talking about that. It's just
Okay,
that
but okay, I understand that you don't agree, but I'm saying that you have to
what am
be
I
a bit
not
harder
agreeing?
on the Christians, or they won't get it. They
What am
won't get it, and they won't change their ways, and maybe they don't really believe in it. And I know you say, oh, but your mother did, and all that. But I'm saying a lot of people who claim to be Christian, they just regard it as a lifetime membership to being middle class and white. This is the impression I get. They don't really believe in it. It's just like, but it's my parents, my grandparents, they were Catholic, they were, whatever, Episcopalian, and it is part of their identity. And of course, they'd be a bit reluctant to give it up. And actually, if you're an atheist, you just wouldn't have a problem with idolatry, because you think, idolatry, idolatry. I mean, what's the difference between worshipping one God and worshipping many gods? And it's all much of a muchness. But there is a qualitative difference between worshipping the right God, if there is only one God, and the other ones are just sort of figments of people's imagination. But I'm saying, if we concentrate on the idolatry point, then Christians would be most to blame, because they've been worshipping somebody who was convicted of blasphemy, but they don't really kind of take it on board, and if you tell it to them, they don't really accept it. But I'm thinking, what's worse than idolatry? It's idolatry and blasphemy. So it's really, really bad, and you've been doing it for a long time, and I guess we're seeing the consequences of not following the right religion, because people say, oh, what's the problem? Idolatry, it worked okay for Christians. They acquired 3 global empires. They did very well for themselves, and they're still powerful, and they're still wealthy. But they're on the way down, and also what's happening now in the West is a consequence of not being. Okay, I'm saying it's a problem for you guys, because you can't even say, oh, hey, Congress, or, this stupid law you passed, you're not supposed to do it. And also, yeah, well, where does it say we're not supposed to do what? I mean, you can say, oh, Judaism, well, we're not Jewish. You can say Christian, we're not Christian. You can say Islam, well, we're not Islam. We're not doing anything wrong. We don't have a religion. We don't have to listen to your crap. because that is a problem of not having an official religion, because you can't even say, oh, there's a line and the law that you pass is on the wrong side of the line. You don't even have that measure, that ability to measure what is right and what is wrong. And this is what you don't have, and you're the most
People
powerful people in the
intuitively
world. You have
know.
stupid
People
Europeans who just do whatever you want them to do, and they don't believe in their Christianity. And that
people
is the problem.
know right from wrong. They know other people suffer. They know this stuff without anyone telling them. A sense of injustice is ingrained in the human nature. What is happening is the institutionalizing of making our real nature be quiet. That's what's going on.
Yeah, they know that. Oh, what you going to do about it? Oh, nothing's going to happen. I'm just a little congressman. I'm, only a lone senator.
It
I'm
doesn't relieve you of your responsibility as a parent or any, whatever's going on around you does not relieve people of their responsibility. The congressman's
I
got.
agree. I agree. But let's assume that okay, everybody's a nihilist. They're not going to do anything because if it because they might suffer some inconvenience or loss of income or position. They're not going to do anything for anybody. Let's just assume that that's going to happen. But they might do it if they're going to easily win, right? Because a lot of these nihilists, I mean, they'll do the right thing if it's easy for them and they know they're going to win, then they'll do it. But if it's going to be hard and they're going to lose and they're going to, then they're not going to do it. So you change the narrative and say, well, you're going to win. That's why you have to do it. Or there's a little risk, but it's not, And I'm saying, fundamentally, a lot of people would prefer to be able to say what they believe to be the truth, but they're just too scared. And I've been talking to these, middle class white Christian Americans or post Christian Americans, and they're completely neurotic. And you can't even sort of even mention a subject, and they go, "Oh, we don't talk about that. We don't talk. We don't talk about this. Not us. It's we know better than to. It's kind of middle class cringe. Like we're just not the sort of people who talk about these things. How dare you even mention it in our presence? How dare you? And yeah, the Americans. I know I did it in a English way, but there are lots of. I can find you videos where I got that kind of reaction. And so there is a qualitative difference between how truckers and the proletariat might react to the same thing, and the middle classes who feel they have too much to lose. Because once they're cancelled, they fall into being in that basket of deplorables, and they can't do it. But actually, a lot of these middle class people that I see, they're doing working class jobs. These educated middle class men, they're painting and decorating. They are, and I can tell from their accents that they're not, proletariat.
Well, the economy started switching over to be in service, and then they have inflated wages. So if you
Yeah,
want
it's
to look
because
at.
the big business keeps exporting their factories to Mexico and China. That was what Trump was saying, and it's because America doesn't even have well, the American ruling classes don't even have the idea that they should be governing the national interest. It's unheard of. You talk to them about it. It's like nationalism. You must be a fascist. So all the words are wrong. You kind of need to redefine a whole bunch of words and stand your ground when people.
I don't know, Claire. All I know is that we have 3 generations here that have been institutionalized to give up behaving like normal men and women, and they have been institutionalized to think somebody else is going to save them.
Yeah, the buck
That's
apparently
right. That's
stopped
right.
at the Oval Office, but it didn't.
I'm not
in
talking
truth.
about the Oval Office. People did not used to think that the government was going to take care of them to this extent, as what I'm seeing now. And when I'm overseas, it's even worse.
Sorry,
This is
what's
not how
worse?
the idea of how much the government is supposed to provide for you. We did not have a nation that thought the government was going to provide everything for you and over direct like what we're seeing
Yeah,
today.
you become a nanny state. You become like the British because they've got a enormous welfare state and the welfare mums, and it's all got to stop. And I know you throw your hands up in horror at the idea of slavery, but what was slavery but the ancient form of welfare? It's like, well, you know, you haven't got a roof over your head. You don't know where your next meal is coming from. Well, you could sell yourself into slavery, and then you'll have a roof over your head, and then you have food in your belly. But you have to be prepared to work, and it's like,
Well,
well,
you can go
okay,
work for food. You want to say someone can go work for food? Okay, I'm
well,
not. I'm
that's a
not.
condition of a slave. You kind of work for free just to have a roof over your head and food in your belly, or you starve on the streets. So I guess that would be when you sell yourself into slavery, assuming somebody wants to buy you. I guess that was how it worked in the
I
olden
go to
days.
work every day. Isn't that what 8 hours? Okay, I'm selling myself into 8 hours of slavery at work. But even in that situation, they can't tell me I can't leave. Working is renting us. You're a slave for part of the day.
Yes, yes. I mean, you sell your labor and your time to whoever employs you. But if you were a real slave, you would be you'd be living under the roof of your master, and and you wouldn't get any wages, but you get fed. You might even get medical treatment if you're valuable enough to,
Yeah,
you know.
I'm not promoting that. I'm
But
not.
I mean, it was the most efficient form of workfare, because I know there was a time when the American government tried to introduce workfare, and there was the Victorian equivalent of it called the poorhouse. So they got all the poor, and they had to organise them, and then they complain about the terrible treatment, and then it was decided it's just cheaper, to just give them the money, and not have them live, there, and that experiment ended. But workfare is very inefficient unless you operate slavery, and that's what I'm saying. And I mean, don't just let the blacks say, "Oh, well, you're terrible people." It's like, how did all these white people from Europe cross the Atlantic? What do you think they did? They had all their savings, or during the Irish potato famine, to pay the fare across the Atlantic. Of course, they didn't. They sold themselves into indentured servitude, and when they got to the other side, they had to work. Well, I don't know however many years they had to work, or whatever the agreement was, and then they were, allowed to go on their way to find their fortune. But I mean, that was indentured, servitude when all the Irish and the huddled masses of Europe went across. I'm sure they didn't, have that, the fare, in their savings. So there's no need for white people to say, "Oh, it only happened to black people." It's
Yeah,
like,
no,
no,
I'm not promoting slavery, Claire. I'm not promoting this idea that you're going to buy and sell people.
no, no. I'm
They're already buying and sell people with the government. They're buying and selling our politicians. No, I don't agree with promoting buying and selling of people.
okay. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, and we're just talking about how it worked. And I think the Islamic rate of tax comes 20%, a fifth, would do nicely in making sure that the government just budgeted for all the things that was mentioned in Combs, and it won't allow this burgeoning welfare state of this ever increasing number of social parasites to, well, eat you out of house and home, because that's what's been happening. And under the system of representative democracy that you're still so keen on, it'll just get worse. because nobody will ever tackle all these problems of illegitimacy because they're so electorally significant that no democratic politician will ever tackle that under a system of representative democracy. So it'll never get better, Carol. It'll just get worse because you won't deal with it. Because all the things I propose, you think, oh, it's too terrible, I'd rather die. But anyway, that's
It's too terrible, I'd rather die.
Well, a lot of people say that to me. Secular coronism, the cure is worse than the disease. We'd rather die.
You got a catch-22 situation here. Yeah, it's going to be turned into a fallen government dictatorship. It will eventually if things don't get turned around.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, maybe the people who are capable of doing anything would be the immigrants, because the immigrants will be thinking, oh my God, what have we done? We came to this mess. The DNA of our children, grandchildren, and descendants are going to be blended into this globo homo, and we came to it was we are the rats clambering on board a sinking ship. How stupid is that?
Well, a lot of them think they're coming here and they're going to stay a while and then go back with a pile of money, is what a lot of them think, and then they end up getting stuck here, kind of.
Yeah, and they'll be gay and degenerate and transgender too, and they'll lose their identity, and nobody, and even if they went back, nobody would want them.
Well, I don't know if anyone would want them or not, but
I mean, a lot of these. I listen to a few of these ghetto streams. Black people in the West, and they're all getting identity issues because I get the impression that people back home in Africa or wherever are mocking them because of the the crazy policies of the West. Because obviously they hear about it and they think, oh, it's crazy.
They're mocking what policies about black people?
I don't know, the globo homo and the transgender.
Well, they haven't been in schools for 3 generations being told they're ridiculous. They're living lives where you have to look at reality and face it, or that's the end of you pretty fast. When you're supporting a family and putting not a family, when people are supporting an economy and trying to destroy it the way they are by destroying the middle class, then there's a different little agenda thing going on. But yeah, they this is incomprehensible. I mean, some people come here, for foreign people come here, and to them, they're just staring at the ridiculous, and they separate it out real fast. Now this is this, and I'm going to do this. Like when they're in business, this is how they kind of do things, and they don't really care that much about what's being fair to somebody else. But we've got a lot of things going on here. A lot of things going on.
Yes, and I mean, there could be a narrative of, well, America being the exceptional and this indispensable nation for what? And I'm going to say propagating Islam when when the American Republic returns to its roots and acknowledges the Islamic roots of the First Amendment. Because really, when you think about it, it was the American Republic that destroyed belief in the Trinity in Europe.
I don't think the Trinity has anything to do with what I'm seeing right now. If somebody believes that or not, it was inspirational for people in the past to fight wars. I think I don't see that as the big problem, that they believe in the Trinity or not.
Well, I'm not saying that people fought wars because they didn't believe in the Trinity. I'm saying
it didn't stop them from fighting a war. Belief in the Trinity didn't stop them from finding a way.
Not at all. I'm saying actually, white people are just sort of good at fighting wars because they fought with each other all the time. I mean, the wars of the Reformation, it went on and on, wars of European unification, First World War, Second World War, and then they went to America, and then they had a civil war.
I just see it all. I just see it all as a decay of several empires that fell apart. I see most of the wars in Europe and stuff as the final decay of the Roman Empire, and it's just taken a really, really long time.
Yes,
The
but
aristocrats, all that stuff. That's how I see all that stuff in a broader picture.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned the Roman Empire because I mean, maybe you know about Constantine and how he prepared his empire to become Christian with his deathbed conversion, calling the Council of Nicaea and all that. Are you familiar?
Yeah, he used Christianity as a way to save the empire in a way. Yes,
But Christianity failed to prevent the fall of Rome, and the whole point of Christianity was used to support the divine right of kings.
Right. Yes.
And it didn't really protect.
It was used for that. It still is, and
well,
and they still want to perpetuate this. That's some reason that's their God right to be the elite. I just don't buy into all that, Claire. I just don't.
I don't buy into that
either. I'm not exchanging one elite for another one. I don't have it in me to go along with that. I think most.
I'm sorry. I'm not asking.
I'm not exchanging one elite for another one.
Well, somebody's got to do the job anyway. But I wasn't really talking about elites. I'm not talking about. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that Christianity has not succeeded in protecting the divine right of kings because of the regicide of Charles I and then followed by the American Revolution, which was a rejection of Christianity and monarchy. I mean, it wasn't explicitly said, but in order to reject monarchy, the founding fathers had to reject Christianity because Christianity supported the divine right of kings to rule. It was implicit, but not.
They had to do it like that to keep the massive amount of Anglicans that were starting to come to the country that were going to get the monarchy in through the back door because they are the head of the church, the King of England. That was
so it could be Anglicanism
come in, and they could not control the beliefs of people coming in. They couldn't pick a different religion and say, for example, we're all going to be, I don't know, something. They couldn't pick a different one because there was no way to control the massive amount of Christians that were coming in from Europe. So they had to say, you guys can believe whatever you want, and that kept the king out. It was, there's several different reasons why they did what they did. It doesn't matter. I want the United States to be the United States. I want it to be the strongest country in the world. I want it to quit being immoral. The government's immoral and corrupt.
Yes, because they don't have the idea of you.
Because they are a vassal state right now. The United States is a vassal state. This is not the United States running everything. The United States is being run.
But if you are the global hegemon, you can't say, oh, the United States is a vassal state of yet another state.
It is a vassal state, Claire. It is. Anybody can go out, look around, and see. This is the ridiculous that's going on. This is a vassal state. You want to talk about the corporations? Well, who's in charge of these corporations? This is a group of international people that are destroying Europe and the United States and Australia.
Yes, because
nothing is going to bother them. What goes on? we're all nothing. We're going to all be peons. They're still going to live high in the hog.
Yes, but I'm saying that every time you have an election, you surrender a bit more of your liberties to corporate America. I mean, that's
Yes,
how
we
it's.
want to hand it to them. So now you're telling us, hand it to them, give it up.
No, no,
Both
I'm
of us,
saying recognize what brought you to this place. And follow the advice of Washington. He warned you all those years ago,
he
and now
did
you're.
not imagine something like a socialism or communism or this
No, he
kind of an
did. He
international
said you're going to be
control
exploited
with
by
this kind of
your.
technology. He did not
He
imagine that.
doesn't. He predicted the military-industrial complex. If you read the speech, he already talks about the military-industrial complex. I was surprised, but then I thought, yes, I'm sure. In ancient medieval times, the military-industrial complex of the time would be, well, arrow makers and swordsmiths and people like that. So maybe it's not such a modern idea. I mean, like somebody's got to make the weapons and the chariots and the, whatever. So, and these people, I guess, make money when, the government buys lots of, chariots and spears and arrows and horses and whatever. So, maybe it's not such a new idea. Anyway, Washington predicted it all those years ago.
Who, Claire? Who do you think's going to go be this great benevolent? Well, I don't see much difference between this and promoting monarchy again. I'm sorry, I don't see much difference between
No,
it.
no, I'm certainly not promoting monarchy because what I'm saying is.
I'm never going to promote the idea that everybody else can make my decision except me. I'm
Well,
never going.
you can vote as much as you like. I mean, if it ever
I'm
worked,
not
you
going
would.
to go to. It's already practically a kangaroo. I mean, it's pretty much fake elections now. So now we're going to have a single state. Oh, great. A single party state who's going to set up the elections, tell us who we can pick from. We can go
China's
down.
doing all right.
I don't
China.
care what China's doing.
Yes,
I'm
but
not.
the whole thing is you want a war with China because it's doing so well. That's why you want it now, but before it gets even more powerful. That's the whole foreign policy of the West geared towards. It's like China's getting really powerful. We better smack her down before she gets too powerful. This is what the British did to the Germans twice. So, it's not a new thing. It even has a very old name, the
Well,
Thucydides trap.
the answer to this is not this country becoming so weak it can't even defend itself. I'm sorry, Claire. I don't agree with a lot of your thinking, but I'm all for putting some Islamic laws into the secular law. I'm all into that, and I'm into the United States having a really nice military,
Yes,
and
yes. I mean,
they should butt out of some of these things. Yeah, they need to butt out of some of these countries, but they are a vassal state, and we are being manipulated right now. Our government is manipulated
yes,
by
because
a
it's
class of
they're
people
easy to
called
bribe.
government.
They're very
Not
easy
just
to.
from bribes, Claire. The entire government is a mess. It's
Yes, because the problem is systemic. You're not meant to have all these stupid political parties who have no principles. What are the principles of the Democratic Party? What are the principles of the Republican Party? The, it's all changed. There's no statement of principles. Can we even remember what they stood for? GOP. I mean, what was the thing that they disagreed with the other part? Okay, I don't know that much about American history. Do you happen to know the difference between the donkey and the elephant?
no.
Okay, but I mean, okay, but obviously they didn't have any proper principles in the same way that in Britain the political parties used to have principles, or the Labour Party had what was called Clause 4, and Clause 4 would basically nationalize everything in sight, and that was considered to be commie. And then Blair said, no, we better not, because all these little people have shares because of Thatcher privatized all that, and we're not going to get elected if we're going to just renationalize everything. So we're going to scrap Clause 4 and not say we're going to nationalize everything in sight. And basically that was the end of the Labour Party. And neither party stand for anything. And the Conservative Party, they pretend they have principles. Their constitution even talks about the principles of the Conservative Party, but when you ask them what they are, they say,
Yeah, okay. I'm not of all this. I don't want to live in a socialist or communist society or under a single party state. They become oppressive. I don't want to live like that. Now, am I living in
it's
fairy tale
kind of
trying
more
to
oppressive than it is now.
huh?
I bet they have more freedom in China. I bet people in China can say who they think is a man and who they think is a woman, and they don't get cancelled. So maybe your idea of America being land of the free and all that, maybe it's no longer the case. And maybe surprise, surprise, countries like China may have more liberties than you. And we have to ask ourselves why. And I'm saying, politicians in China, they don't have to pretend to care what people, what the little people think, and fight elections and well, lie to all these people. They just get on with the job of governing the country, and because they have job security, presumably that's why they will do it, without making too much of a fuss. And actually, the current system is very difficult to manage because, well, I mean, it's exhausting, isn't it? I mean, what Trump had to do, a whole year just to get elected, and all the money spent, and all the people who hate you when they know you've broken your promises. It's not even a good idea to, well, get yourself elected in that way, to make all those promises and break all those promises and say it's the best. Anyway, when you get to the stage of stealing elections and whatever, then you're already admitting that the thing no longer works.
Yeah, but handing them less of what was left. I mean, having a vote that's useless. So now what? We're just going to hand them the vote and then say that we have no say anymore. That is giving up.
No, it's not,
Saying,
because
no,
if
no,
you can trust your politicians to
no,
just do the
because
thing.
you cannot trust the
Okay,
politicians.
but okay, so you don't trust them, and you have all these rules that you're supposed to be able to use to scrutinize, but then you don't, you forget because you work, and it's all a bit complicated, and you don't understand, and nobody would support you. Ultimately, you have to trust your government. You can't be, just checking everything that they do, because at some stage you're supposed to trust people under you even to do their job. And if you don't, then yes, it's all over. But I'm saying, if you can get people to do the right thing, and what will get people to do the right thing? It must be your moral system. And I'm saying you don't have one, and that's why everybody just does whatever they like, because there's nobody, looking over their shoulder. There's no accountability. You have an election every 4 years, and you ask, silly people silly questions, and then you get silly answers, and you get a silly government, and this is where you've got. Carol, I think of the Aztecs all the time. I think, maybe there were a few Aztec priests who said, maybe if we didn't practice human sacrifice, the sun would still come up the next day.
One second. 1 second. Okay, I'm listening. I'm just going to put the camera off for a minute. Okay, go on.
Okay, so I'm saying there may have been some Aztec priests who thought to themselves, and maybe even said, that even without the practice of human sacrifice, the sun will still come up. But Either they got cancelled for heresy or something, or they realised if they even said anything like that, well, they would just be abolished. I mean, like, well, okay, so we don't practice human sacrifice,
They lose
and
their job.
priesthood, and so they just carried on until
They would lose their job, Claire.
Yes.
They're not going to undermine their own job.
Yes. So you have to say you won't lose your job if you do it properly. You have to negotiate with them. And it's like, well, how would you like your job to be better? And I'm sure that the answer would be, well, we wish we weren't so hated. We wish we could do our job better. We would actually like to not have to lie so much because it upsets us too. Because really, what we'd like to do is not have this cognitive.
I've never seen it, Claire. I've never seen this when something turns into a single party running something, that it does anything other than start oppressing people and shutting people up. I'm sorry, I've never seen that. That has not been my experience.
Well, I'm not going to guarantee success overnight. I mean, there will be bumps along the way.
Okay, so right now we don't have success, and we're supposed to go with an idea that the only way you can go against it would be a violent revolution, because you're going to have a single party state. How the heck can you go against it? You can't.
Well, you can't go against what you have now.
You can if they took over the party. You can in theory.
Well, what if they keep stealing elections? They still want it. Well,
huh?
If you steal one election, you can steal another, or you can indict.
Yes. There's been There's been fraud.
Trump charges. So it's not like you're getting your way now under this wonderful system, which you're not even supposed to have according to your founding father. And he did mention religion because Washington said we must, with caution, indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Yeah. So he must have been thinking, oh, there's some sort of religion, but it's not Christianity. What religion could that be?
He was thinking, we have, he's thinking that, can we have a morality without religion? I don't know. But we're going to try to do this. We're going to try to do this because we can't have that damn king back here again.
Yeah, and you don't have to have that king.
I'm saying that's what he was dealing with. Everybody's dealing with something different. Whoops.
But it's true. Well, okay, it's worked. Okay, for China, it's certainly better than what it was under the Qing dynasty. These are sort of rationally governed. If they have that one party, you won't think, oh my goodness, I joined the wrong party and now I'm out of office and I have to wait until the next election before I can get into office. They don't have to do that. It's like, well, there's no problem about you joining the wrong party and getting kicked out and, being treated as shop soil because you got kicked out of your party. And the principles of the party are clearly defined. It's not.
Who's going to talk for me, Claire? Who will talk for me?
Your representative.
A representative.
In theory, you have one still, but
he doesn't care.
Yeah. But hopefully, the next one will. I mean, obviously, there's no guarantee, and
in a single party state, who is talking for me?
Your representative. It'd still be your representative.
Why would the representative pay attention to me, Claire?
Because they want to do a good job.
Oh, now all of a sudden they want to do a good job. And where do you think the pool of people are going to come from when this turns into a single party state? Where do you think these people are going to come from?
Hopefully you will get the best people, or you will have to find a way of choosing the best people.
Same bunch that was running the country before. And now it's a single party state. It'll be from the same people.
No, look, there is a difference between something working.
They know how to do it because they're the experts. They know how to do it. They got the money backing. It's going to be the same people. Only now you have no way to say no at all legally. That's it. That's the problem.
No,
It
no,
won't
no, no,
work
no.
anymore.
In theory, you have all the mechanisms, all the rules that say you can do this, but people just can't be bothered to use them because they know they're going to be ignored. That's why they don't do it. But yes, I mean, I'm sure on paper all the rules are there, but people don't bother because they know they're just going to waste a lot of money and legal fees and still not get what they want because the system is rigged. Like that Arthur Goldberg. Do you know that? Are you aware of Arthur Goldberg?
Well, who's Arthur Goldberg? Remind me. I don't know who he is.
Oh, he was the one who set up all those conversion therapy clinics, and he was charged with fraud and stuff because he was it the Southern Poverty Law Center didn't like what he was doing because he was basically telling Jews not to be gay.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, and he's forbidden. He had his application for appeal refused, and it's coming to the UK because whatever you do, it comes over to the UK eventually because we're just a vassal state, and just for no reason, David Cameron said, "Oh, we've got to legalise gay marriage," and people say, "But it wasn't even in the Conservative Party manifesto." And even his mother said, "I don't know why David is doing this." And it's like, yeah, he was told to do it by Uncle Sam. Because yes, we remember the famous iconic photograph of the White House in rainbow colors under Obama. I think you remember that.
The White House in rainbow colors on what? I knew they were hanging on the embassy.
Yeah, and that was during the Obama administration.
Yeah, Obama.
But
Okay.
yeah, but I'm saying that there is a narrative to it, and I'm saying if America were to repent like the Ninevites, then there would be, well, maybe a happy ending for all of us. And it is this narrative that I think, I guess enough Americans still, vaguely remember some story about some whale and the Ninevites, and there's the Book of Jonah in the Bible, and I guess most American homes still have a Bible. It's still a story, maybe that is the narrative. That is the divine narrative about correction and all that kind of thing. And maybe all this is kind of a warning, like, well, what's the solution in theory anyway? So the solution in theory is Islam. Well, how are we going to get Islam? Well, you'll have to make arguments for it. You'll have to talk to people that you know in real life and make all those arguments. And the divisions is not just between political parties. The divisions are generational, and of course by class. There are class divisions as well as the generation gap. Where did that come from? The expression, it came from America, the generation gap. And now we have the intergenerational gap because changes are happening even more quickly. And it's all fueled by consumerism and music, and we kind of identify ourselves by the music we liked when we were younger.
Why don't you guys do it first? Why don't you guys become the great single party state?
Well, I mean, this is what I do propose it anyway. I mean, I don't say a different thing to British people, because I'm saying it's the only way that secular communism would work anyway. And if I then say, I don't mind being a bit radical, but I'm saying, if you guys started it, then everybody else would follow, because we do, because we're just your vassal states. And if because like I said about all the gay marriage and transgenderism, it came from America, and we just followed it. The EU, Britain, we just sort of followed unquestioningly, and well,
But
maybe
it
to do
doesn't
the
seem that way to me, Claire. It seems to me like Europe is more global H than here, even though this is real. Since COVID, this is really unbelievable. I think they seem to be more global H than here. So I'm not seeing it. When I talk to Europeans and stuff, they're much more friendly towards socialism
yes,
than
because
I am. I'm not seeing it. The United States is behind Europe. Europe is worse than here.
maybe there's a kind of transatlantic cross infection. We just get moral diseases, and we pass it back and forth across the Atlantic. But anyway, I suppose Britain, well, Europe being a more crowded country, it's just people are more easily monitored, I guess, and they don't have a tradition of freedom because they used to be Christian kingdoms who would burn heretics at the stake. So I guess
So how are you deciding that everybody over there is imitating us to this extent when they are much more further along promoting socialism and fascism than the United States? How can you say that? It
Well,
doesn't.
I mean, the average
It's been
Briton wants to be American. I mean,
great.
they love American culture. It's like the average working class person, they don't.
Even fashion, even Americans, the fashion's the other way. The stuff hits New York, then it hits the East, the West Coast a couple years later. French fashion. This isn't true that everyone in Europe is imitating Americans. What's true is that maybe some of them want to live like Americans and like what they see on these TV shows. But it's not true. Religion is not as dead in the United States as it is in Europe.
Yeah, because you have a different experience of religion. You weren't forced it. You weren't forced to attend church.
Whatever the reason, this is not Europe following the United States. The United States is collapsing after Europe is collapsing.
Well, okay.
I'm not seeing it the way this way that you're coming up with this, because it's not that way. When I talk to people in Europe, they expect way more support and stuff out of government than here. Now, that's true that in California and stuff, because it's turning into a great disgusting welfare state for electoral votes and all that. You have everyone's thinking freebies because they can't figure out how they can even make any money anymore. Some people, they're making their life choices based on this, but it is not true that Europe follows the United States. From what I can see, that is not true. It's the
Well,
other way around. They're collapsing. Europe is collapsing. White Europe is collapsing. And now the United States is following suit. Europe got rid of religion, just secular and stuff. The United States later started following suit. It is not them following us. We are not learning from the mistakes of Europe, because we can see them having a bigger problem than us. Why isn't people in the United States looking at the European problem more? They're not. They're not. This is not true. You can talk about white supremacy all you want. You can talk about all this stuff. This is way more advanced in Europe than, as an idea and stuff than it is in the United States. We are not. Europe is not a vassal to us. Okay, what's going on is an elite oligarchy that is destroying our economies and encourage it. And you guys went to the economic union, which was a big fat mistake, and they were able to get more control over there and stuff. Now they're taking away your farmland so people can start starving. This is not following the United States. The United States is following suit to Europe. Davos meeting is in Davos. It's not in Arizona.
yeah, but I mean, obviously, if you're globalist, you can sort of, pretend to be neutral about it, right? I mean, Davos, it's in Switzerland. Oh, it's neutral. But
That's a bunch of crap. The point is that the United States is leading all this. Why aren't we farther along than Europe in all of this? We are not. We're not. What's been happening is these people have decided to use our military and our people to destroy our youth for their agendas. This is what's going on because the United States is a vassal state. It was just kind of big, and they're destroying Europe first, and now we're being destroyed, and nobody's getting it. But this idea, oh, they're going to all follow in the U.S. No, the U.S. is not learning from the mistakes Europe is making, because Europe is making these mistakes first, because they're smaller countries, because they got suckered into the economic union, turning their government into a bunch of bureaucrats, really. They're just nothing but paper pushers. And I mean, this is not us. This is not us leading them to this. Okay.
Well, I don't see how you can say, well, anything with any certainty. I mean, I guess,
Because it's obvious, clear that Europe is in a bigger mess than the United States. It's in a bigger mess. Okay, so if they're following us and doing what we're all saying, our mess should be even bigger. And our mess is big now. But Europe is worse. Europe, they're all buying into the idea that they can't say what they want, that they can't. And now we are. Okay, it's Europeans starting that. I'm going to say a bad word first. Europeans. Okay, this idea, though, they're all following the United States, they're deflecting. Europe is collapsing first. Then the United
yes. I mean, it was quite shocking to see Tucker Carlson losing his First Amendment rights, and then seeing Americans not saying it. They're not saying it.
They have been not taught any political thought for 3 generations in the schools. They don't know what's going on. They dummy down education. Nobody knew what to do about these Americans. So what did they do? They dummy down education. They put their people in academia. They promoted socialist policies, egalitarian, all this kind of garbage. But the United States is following Europe. Europe has bought into this stuff much earlier than we did. The only thing the United States did was they said, we don't want a monarchy. The United States said, the hell with the monarchy, bye. Okay? That's what the United States did.
Yeah, but if you follow the same sort of social policies.
The same sort of policy. Okay, but this idea that you're promoting, that the United States led the entire Western world down this, is incorrect. This is not correct. The United States did not lead Europe to its destruction. The Europeans bought into these stupid ideas faster. The type of people who came to the United States from Europe were sort of a subgroup of Europeans that were willing, because in the beginning, those poor people that came, and not forget about Washington and Jefferson, that he gets to go to Paris and he likes France and all this. A big group of them that came had no idea they would be able to go back. They took a chance. This is a different mindset. Europeans are too damn passive. Americans now have become too passive, but the United States has been following the collapse of Europe. The United States is after Europe. It's not leading Europe down this path of destruction. The United States is following the European in the same mistakes.
Well, the
marriage is okay. This is just relatively recent that Global Homo got to this during COVID. They pulled a whole lot of stuff while everybody was in lockdown over here in these schools and stuff. It did not look like this, before. It didn't look like this. They pulled all this stuff. They did all this. It's this European stuff. We are not leading the world down this path. So, what you are suggesting is that we must follow that path, give up whatever stuff we used to have, that we used as power in government, give it up so we can go down the European path faster now.
What have I said that meant
But I
That
talk. Look, you're the one who keeps saying American hegemony, American leading this. America does it first. The rest of Europe will follow suit. No, the United States has been following Europe all along. The United States was influenced by what goes on in Europe and didn't look at what was wrong. Yeah, sure. We came over here and said we could make a better toilet than the one in Europe. We made a better toilet. We did all this stuff. We started having a really, really interesting political thought development and this sort of thing. But the United States is not leading the Western world right now. It's
who
obvious.
is?
It's obvious. It's a vassal state just like everywhere else. But they want to use our military. You understand? They're taking away
I sort of think you're kind of using the victimhood thing.
everything is being taken away from Europeans. You don't have your right to guns. You don't have free speech. You don't even get your right to private property. You get to go move into these government housing. You get to all this stuff is being taken away from Europeans first. They're taking it away from here. People are buying into this. The Americans have been stupid. They should have been looking at what is happening in Europe, how to prevent it here. Everybody wants to talk about some white nationalists in the United States. Big whoop-de-doo. None of this is not relevant. It is not true the United States is leading all this. What is true is the banks have been using the U.S. military as some kind of transfer of power and using our people for their agendas. And yeah, is there good government for the people? No, I don't see that anywhere.
But Carol, you must have heard of neoconservatism, which is another name for American imperialism. What is neoconservatism?
They're using our military. This is
Oh, yeah.
it's very complicated. Look,
You're kind of saying that you're the biggest victim of all.
I'm just a housewife. Okay? That's all I am. I'm a housewife. I stayed home. I took care of my kids. That's how I lived my life the last, 40 so years.
You're a very well-read woman.
But
Carol.
I'm telling you, this idea that the United States is leading Europe is crap. It's not true. The United States the people in the United States have not kept their eye on the ball. They have not looked at Europe enough. They should have been looking at the collapse that was happening there and realized we're mirroring it now, later. You can't say the United States led them down this if the United States is behind them. Okay? It's just
the number one superpower. You invade countries.
The United States does that to other people. Listen. They invade people, but it is not being run by the United States government. It's not being run by the people for the people. Everybody.
Okay, but it's still American. It's American foreign policy. And even if you say, "Oh, I didn't, want my government."
It's a transferred policy from a larger oligarchy above all of this. Okay, it is not U.S. foreign policy. It's this idea affects U.S. academia. It affects the government. The corporations are supporting it. All this. This is not a situation that the United States political thinking has led Europe. That's not what's going on here. Okay, now I'm not saying this like, defending Europe like this. When you got people over here, and that's one of the reasons I say to get rid of these foreign imams that are over here. They're over here saying we need gun controls. Well, they're going and lobbying in government for invasions, saying we're leading all these Muslims in this country, all these immigrants who don't even know what's going on. They just got off the boat, and then they bring in another.
Okay, well,
this is not.
I think all these countries that America has invaded. I'm sure.
What about all the countries
invaded it anyway? Because they're all rich.
What?
Okay, I don't quite buy what you say about, oh, these imams, they get America to, invade countries on their behalves. I mean,
Okay, look, Claire, look, Claire. We got a lot of Muslims. Okay, we got a lot of Muslims. They're saturated in certain areas in the United States. Okay, the foreign imams come here. They're leading these little congregations, right, of immigrants. They're leading them. Then they're telling them, "Hey, this is what we need to be doing." Well, they don't know anything about this country. What they're doing is trying to create a little oligarchy subclass. This is what I was trying to tell William, to be honest. They're trying to create a small oligarchy of their own for political power so that they can be the leaders that are affecting the government for their agendas. Okay, do you
okay,
understand? In
well,
other words, they're using all these immigrants for their numbers, presenting themselves as the leader of all these people, and then they're lobbying in Washington for what our military is going to do. You understand?
like, has it happened before?
Yes, of course, the invasion of Iraq.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sure. No, no, that's ridiculous. Yes, I know there were some overseas Iraqis and stuff that was in the news,
No,
but
no,
I think
no, no. They lobbied for it. Muslims went and
I don't
lobbied
think they would
the
do. Okay,
American government to invade
I
Iraq.
think America was planning to invade.
Whether they
Okay,
were,
okay, but
they
no, you
lobbied
you can't
for it.
prove it.
Listen, they lobbied for it. They lobbied for it. They ran the Iraqi National Congress in some of the masjids. Okay? What they're trying to do is make themselves, their leaders, a little political force in order to say, we're representing all these Muslims and trying to lobby themselves in power. That's why I keep telling you. That's why I keep telling you, you need numbers in the United States. Well, they're using the numbers of what these immigrants, in much the same way California did what? Attracted people who like to be on the dole or who have to be on the dole that come from maybe they
Yeah,
didn't have.
that's why you need to kick out democracy.
No, that's why you need to kick these people out.
Okay, well, you can't
This
do
is not getting
anything,
rid of democracy.
unless you're in
Claire.
power
Right.
anyway.
So it's weak. It was weak against the oligarchy. That's what you're saying. That's all you're saying. Okay, but to give up the idea and to have nothing to fight for is a mistake. Now,
I'm
now,
not saying that. I'm saying fight for it, but fight for it in the right
no, you're
way.
saying fight for it by adopting this idea of elitism. I'm sorry, your stuff is just
You,
sideways feudalism, what you're promoting. Oh, the elites are going to run this.
of
Oh,
course they
they're
are.
just gonna
They're just not good enough.
magically be doing government for the good of the people, like hell they are.
It doesn't matter whether they're good or bad. The point is that, it's like a driver. He may be a good driver, he may be a bad driver, but you need a driver to drive the coach. So, obviously, if you're a passenger, you make sure that the driver's passed his driving test or whatever. But, to make the coach go, somebody's got to drive it. And the political process is about who gets to choose to be,
But
who
right now,
chooses whom to be the driver.
it's
But
not
I mean, you can't
it's
get around the
not
fact that you need somebody to drive it.
Claire, have you looked at this? Have you looked at our government right now?
Yes, I know.
You
I
don't
just as
possibly think
bad.
that president is running anything, do you?
No, I don't. He's a
Okay.
puppet, as
Okay, puppet of who?
puppet of the deep state.
Okay.
Okay, and some people think Obama is running the CIA. Have you heard of that?
Claire, the point is, I'm not I'm not going to ever promote this single state idea you have. Doesn't matter what you say, I don't agree with it. We don't see eye to eye on this. I don't agree eye to eye on some of your analysis of why things are the way they are. I don't. I do not want to live in a single party state. I don't. I don't want anyone saying a
Okay,
damn
then
thing to
just
me.
carry on with whatever you have now.
Huh? Well, what's
carry
Europe
on.
going to do?
Just carry
What's
on.
Europe going to do?
You
What is
carry on
Europe?
voting.
Huh?
Carry on
What is
voting.
Europe? Okay. But you want to say the problem is we're leading Europe to this? No, I
Yes.
disagree.
Yes,
I do
because
not agree.
because I know Europeans who say, "Oh, our politicians, they can barely speak their own language now. They're more interested in learning English, the better to talk to their political masters." And they don't mean the British. They don't mean the British, Carol. They mean the Americans.
Look, I'm looking at things. I just look at things. I look
Yeah.
at and I evaluate it my way, Claire. Europe is on the brink of collapse.
The West is on the
Getting
brink of
there.
collapse.
We are getting there. Okay, they are pushing for socialism. They want this stuff. They want the handouts. They want it. The
Yes,
general.
I know. I mean, UBI.
Okay, but
I
you
mean,
can't
I know
say that.
Californians who
It's
say they
not.
can't say no to
It's
UBI.
not true that everyone in the United States is looking for the handouts at this point. The percentage is a little bit different. We are not a nation that is totally godless. That is, this isn't true.
But I keep
Religion
trying
is
to explain
alive
to
and
you,
well in
if
the
you
United States.
believe in God, if you believe in God and he forbade idolatry, then there is a problem. Well, I assume that if God exists and he said, don't do all these things and you do these things, then there will be punishment. And I'm saying
But
this.
that's not my view, Claire. That's
Okay, I
yours.
know it's not your view, but it's an easy to understand
Well, whether
view
it's easy
that
to
will.
understand or not, yeah, I did something bad. Something bad happened to me. It was my fault. That to me, that's all. That's what you're.
And I'm being punished. Yes.
I don't see it that way.
Okay,
God's
but
not punishing
I think
us.
a lot of people can be
God's not
persuaded to
punishing us.
see it in that way.
Humans are not doing what they need to do. Okay, and then these are the natural consequences. Okay, it's not God punishing. I just don't believe that.
Okay, but I mean, you're Muslim. You're supposed to believe
You
in
tell me
Allah.
how to understand my religion, Claire. I've had about enough of it. You don't know how in my religion these things are explained, and Muslims have different ideas.
I know they
Okay?
all have different ideas, and the Jewish narrative is the most effective.
I don't see how it is. I'm
Yes, it
seeing
is, because you can't argue against
they have
it.
a nation of people, a nation that they've created that is being pretty much financed by another one. For what? How many years? 66. I mean, what is it? 1949? I don't even. How many years is that?
So what are you talking about?
The Israeli state is supported by the United States.
Okay, yes, I know. I certainly.
Okay, so that's the great example of what? How to
Of
be
American
parasitical.
imperialism. You have to pay for your empire.
This is not an American value to try to live off of other people, Claire, like this. Now, it's easy for people to start forgetting this because each generation is dying out and people don't even seem to understand what I'm talking about anymore. Because, I'm at the age where I get to start doddering and doodling around and forgetting words. And, I'm at this age. But that
You
is
seem to be
not,
doing all right. But
well, no, I'm saying wrong words and stuff. I mean, who knows how long. But I'm saying it's just not the same. I don't agree with this analysis. Now, my idea is I don't want to live like a European. You guys want too many handouts. I don't want to live like that. I don't want my people to be living like that or thinking like that.
I'm not saying
We
should all have more handouts.
A single party state leads towards oppression. Now, maybe George Washington didn't realize that. I don't know. It leads towards a very oppressive government.
Well,
and because it starts silencing any dissent.
You've never lived in a one-party state. You've never visited.
I've been to a one-party state. Okay, and I don't want to talk about it right now. I have never seen it. I have never seen one organization, once it starts going into a single control pattern. No, it starts excluding. I have seen masjids go to a single party masjid. I have seen all these things. If they go, once they go single party and dissent is squashed out, the oppression starts. So this
I
is
suppose
why.
it's relative, this oppression.
No, it's not relative.
No, because
I
if you're
like,
going to,
I like total freedom of thought, Claire.
well, in your mind, you can have a total freedom of thought, but I think
no,
there's always a
it's
corollary.
they're already getting rid of books. They're already getting rid of everything. You know, it's not the point. This is how I see things. I don't see it the same way as you. But this is a great idea to take laws from the Quran and put it into secular law. It's great because the laws from the Quran are very practical and they make sense and they're relatively easy to understand. It makes sense, not this half piecemeal band-aid approach to the law where we're going to fix it kind of this halfway way doing that, but we don't know. Oh, okay, then we're going to go. Yeah, I'm agreeing to that. I agree to that, but I'm not ever going to see it your way. I do not see the United States as leading Europe. I see the United States as following suit to Europe. I see it as you have a very an elite oligarchy.
Well, it's not even that. It's like this driver analogy. You need somebody to drive the coach, and he may be a good driver.
I'm telling the working class. I'm telling the working class and the middle class go drive the coach.
Yeah, and nobody in America calls themselves elite and upper class, right? I mean, there might be, dynastic families who keep becoming presidents, like the Bushes and the Clintons or whatever. But
Bushes and Clintons.
Well, it's George.
People aren't even part of the class, Claire. This is insane. That's just not what's going on. They are not leading our country. They're pretty much selected and put into office. They harvest them from academia. They harvest them from these upper crust schools. They're not running the country. I don't know when the last time we had a president that actually was the leader of the country. I don't know when the last time that was.
Reagan? Or maybe not even him.
I don't know. See, this is what happens when generations drop off and then people start creating a new narrative.
JFK, and he got assassinated for it.
No, this is pretty insidious what's going on, and people want to. I don't know, Claire. I just don't.
Well, okay, just as little bit as I know about ancient Greek history was that oligarchies were bad because it was just two parties taking turns to rule and having the same policies. And this is a kind of running joke. It's like, well, in China, there's only one party, but it sure is prepared to change its policies. But yes, in the West, you have all these different parties, but the policies never change.
Okay, what's your point?
My point is, again,
okay, your point
the one party state thing which you don't agree with. And the other thing that you don't agree with is,
and then we will have even less freedom of speech is what's going to happen.
Well, the reason why there is so much censorship is because the matriarchy is afraid of its own shadow. It knows its time is up. It knows that any little upset and the whole thing will just fall over because it's built on a pile of lies.
Men created this. If
And
you go
women.
way up, or go way up, they're not listening to any women talk about anything. Okay,
I,
what they did was they mobilized. Okay, they mobilized the vote. They got people. They soft started the vote. They got the women to start voting and stuff. But the answer is not that women need to quit voting. Okay,
well, Ann Coulter said that.
people need to wise up. They have to say no to all this. They have to do it in mass.
Yeah, but they won't do that. If there's no leader, nobody's going to do anything. Even sheep have leader. Even sheep
And so, who is
have
this
sheep
person?
dogs and cattle prods and
Who are the
things.
names? What are the names of these magical people that you think are possibly going to run government in the United States for the good of the people?
Well, I assume that there will be, a best person to run the country,
Who?
whose name we don't know yet. Maybe some.
Well, he's
I
going
don't
to
know.
rise up from where? The masses? They're going to pull somebody out of the pool that's in here right
Okay,
now.
okay. I'm going to say that maybe the best people to run the country would be people who have some knowledge of doing things, like CEOs of people who.
Oh, CEOs. Don't we have a
Okay,
president?
okay. Who do you want to? Who would you like?
I don't know, Claire. I'm asking
Okay,
you.
neither do I.
Saying this.
Somebody will come up
You said
with the
somebody will
selection
come up.
criteria.
Who? Jesus Christ, the Matty. Somebody's just going to rise up from what group of people? The elites that
Doesn't matter about the group of people, because in theory, in America, you can be president if you're over the age of 30, blah, 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 blah.
Theory. Let's be realistic.
Yeah, but I'm saying, no. Just because you haven't got anyone in mind doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
The founding fathers were elites.
Yeah, you're okay with that.
Listen to what I'm saying. There were elites in the United States. They set up government, and then there were presidents, almost in a little row there. Okay, how on earth do you think, if we go to a single party state, that whoever these people are that are going to be identified to doing government for the good of the the nation, where are they going to come from? They're going to come from this same group of people. If
you were sensible, you would have a different selection criteria. There are ways of managing these things. You use words, you use rules, and you see that the rules are followed. The whole point of politics is changing the rules, and obviously
you can't do too much, Claire. You can't do that if you're taking away any power the people have.
No, the people are stupid, and they'll just do stupid things and just acknowledge that.
Okay, but
so I don't know what it is you're actually proposing. Oh, the elite are corrupt, but we still have to keep voting. I mean,
no, I'm saying your single. Oh, I'm saying your single party state idea sucks. That's what I'm saying.
And I'm saying the system.
You can say that. I don't care if you say that. You can say that. You can say that. That's fine. You can say that.
Okay. So what you're saying really is we're just gonna maintain the status quo, but complain about it in imaginative, creative ways.
No, I didn't say that, Claire. I said we're gonna.
Yeah, and we're just gonna
We're gonna look for a better answer. Okay.
I'm saying that you if you want to give people something, they have to believe it would work. And if you're saying, oh, it's just, a bit of change, but more or less the same thing, they're not going to believe you. They're not going to believe you. Carol, they're not going to believe that your piecemeal changes are going to actually do anything. It's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And we're not going to upset too many people because I'm such a lady and I'm so kind.
I'm not giving up any of my rights for an elite class of people. I'm not going to do
just
it.
That the founding fathers were elitists.
Yes, you know so much more than me. You're going to be the expert in my life. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm not going.
You were the one who pointed out to me that the founding fathers were what?
Were the
elite.
whether they were or not, it was to our benefit. They're thinking the
Yeah,
elite's
but
thinking
it's
now
not.
is not to our benefit.
It's a question of choosing your leaders. This is what it's all about, monarchy or
You
republic.
don't get
How
that
are we going
taking
to
away the
choose our
vote.
leaders?
You don't get that taking away the vote and creating a single
Okay,
party
but the
state. You
voting,
don't get
every time
that.
you vote, you give more
Your
of your rights
idea
away to
doesn't
corporate
get us that.
America.
Your idea doesn't get us that. Okay. That part of your idea does not get us that.
Oh, well, I'm just going to appeal to authority. I mean, I think George Washington is good enough authority, founding father, first president, and all that. And if he said it, I guess maybe it's good enough for other Americans. If it's not good enough for you,
Maybe. Who knows?
yeah. But anyway, I suppose the idea is to get. I mean, I think our conversations have been useful. I mean, at the moment, not many people are watching, but I think your great idea of being a caliph of the USA, that created a lot of interest, and
I am the caliph of the U.S. because one hasn't stepped up to the plate yet.
yeah,
One has not stepped up to the plate to lead anyone. And so, the matriarchy gets a matriarchy. That's what they get.
yes, yes.
Okay.
All right, Carol. Thanks for this very, very energetic exchange that we've had.
Okay. Say hi to Bruno for me. I never see him anymore.
Well, he's still streaming away.
Well, I saw him today for a couple of minutes. He was reading.
Well, that's what he does. He just reads and reads and reads, and I couldn't bear it anymore. And he wouldn't even read the thing that I wanted him to read. I think he's going to be reading something about Islam and Masonry, but I don't know if he's done that. But he's read the Athanasian Creed. Have you read the Athanasian Creed?
Oh, probably.
Okay.
I don't. I can't remember. Yeah, I've read most of the those Christian creeds and stuff. I just don't remember them because I don't refresh my mind on them all the time anymore.
Yeah.
I've usually read some, and then because I'm not Christian that I'm gonna be that stuck on it, and I'm not even that much into. I mean, I'll read a lot of some of the ideas in Islam, but I don't necessarily go back again.
Yes. I mean, basically, all I'm saying is that I have this little theory about the collective punishment that God would be meting out if he exists. And he's really mad at the Christians for their idolatry and blasphemy. And if they stopped, if they repented, they would have to show that they repented by, adopting the best religion around, and if they did, then things would get better for them. And this is a narrative that I think it would be useful to push. That you've been practicing idolatry and blasphemy for nearly 2,000 years, and God is very mad at you. And if you stopped, things might get better. So how about it? And I think Christians are quite well. It's very easy to debunk the Trinity, and some people might enjoy it, and yeah. I mean, I think.
Well, I don't know. I never believed in it, even as a kid. I didn't believe in it, so it's kind of a. It's not like I was somebody who believed in it and quit believing in it. I just didn't believe in it, even though I was brought up to believe it. So I just didn't. And
Yeah, but I'm sure lots of people didn't really, but they knew not to question it because of what would happen. Being burnt at the stake and everything, but then they stopped doing this sort of thing. You see, so I think in 1612, last person to be burnt at the stake. 1697, last person to be executed, hanged for blasphemy, and then before 80 years was up, there was the American Revolution. So it meant that if you want to go back to Christianity, this is what you'd have to do again. You'd have to burn heretics at the stake to frighten them into, well, shutting up. And therefore, if you want to go back to the time when Christianity was working properly, this is what you'd have to do. But then, the whole point of the American Revolution was a rejection of this kind of thing. I mean, the elitists, I'm sure, the elites, like, the founding fathers that you were talking about, obviously they were, educated, intelligent men, and they didn't want to be told to pretend to believe in this absurdity. And that was what started the American Revolution. And this idea, the Europeans, when they heard of it, wanted to have. And then there was a French Revolution, and then things settled down for a bit. And then there was a Russian Revolution, which was another rejection of Christianity and monarchy. But the Europeans still haven't got it yet, because the British still have their king.
And a couple other places.
Well, the thing is, it's stupid for the British to be under a king who has fewer rights than they do. And what could be worse than not to have freedom of belief? Because Charles, whatever you think of it, he doesn't have his First Amendment rights. We have more of First Amendment rights than our king. And it's a topsy-turvy world. And it's just a matter of a bit of constitutional housekeeping on your side of the Atlantic and on my side of the Atlantic. We're talking, you were saying earlier, Americans don't understand their own history, and I'm saying Europeans don't. They don't understand their own history because it's been so horrible. It was horrible last century with their 2 world wars. And they lost, they lost their empire. Because once upon a time, the global empires were European. The first global empire, the Spanish, and then the British Empire, and now the American Empire. But anyway, the irony of the American Empire is that if the First Amendment was supported by Chapter 2, verse 256, then it was, in fact, Islam that destroyed belief in the Trinity. So it's already been done. We just have to accept it. We have to acknowledge it, and things will get better. And that's just my little message, my little interpretation, which I don't think is too way off, using the existence of the American Empire, which I'm saying was a rejection. The whole thing was a rejection of monarchy and Christianity. But I suppose I better go to bed.
Oh God, yeah, it's really late for you. It's only like 7. Okay.
Well, it's been fun, Carol.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.